Hey everybody, it's been a little while since I put out a video jig tutorial, but I'm going to show you today how I tie this bluegrass collared jig and how you get the tail to flare instead of staying straight and just running straight down the shank of the hook. So what we're going to start with is a 1/16 ounce ball head jig. And how I start that off is I'm going to take a little bit of super glue and I'm going to put it right here on the shank of this hook. Just right up at the head. And you can see right there, there's just a little bitty drop of that super glue. So then what I'm going to do is I've got blue thread here on my bobbin, and I am going to wrap a base layer right down over the top of that super glue, and you'll see that glue squish out, and I'll stop it about right there. I'll come back about 1/4 of an inch, and what that purpose of that is going to be is I'm going to take a light blue neck hackle feather, and I'm going to cut the tip off. And then I'm going to cut several V's. And I'll cut these off quick and show you what they look like. So what I've done is I've cut the tip off, and you can see that that's about twice as long as the shank of the hook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this in, and what I'll do is I'll start it on the back side of the shank of that hook and I'll wrap it forward, and that will cause that to twist so that it ends up being flat on the shank of the hook. Then I come back to where I tied that off, just like that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a little thread dam. I'm just going to keep wrapping thread until it makes a little bit of a ball, and that super glue that's under there will help hold that. And that's the real key to tying these collar jig heads, so that it doesn't slip and spin on the shank of the hook. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip the jig upside down, and I'm going to take two pieces, two of these V's, just like this. You can see they're about 1/2 inch of the quill on them, and I'm going to take these and I'm going to stack them. And how I do that is I just set one right on top of the other, so they're just like that. So now I've got both of those V's right there, and I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to grab them on the side so that it's going to bunch up like that when I twist it. And with that, what I'm going to do is just measure kind of where I want that to be. Now when I tie this in right down here, that thread dam is going to cause that to flare. So I'm going to trim it. When I measured it with my fingers right here, I'm going to take my other fingers and pinch it right there, and I'm going to cut that off right there, just like that. You'll see. So I've cut that off. Now I'm going to set it down on the base of the hook, do a little loose wrap, and then tighten it up. And now I'll wrap back to that thread dam, and you can see how that thread dam causes that to flare out. So now when we get the top part of it done, it'll flare out as well and be proportionate, and the tail that way isn't just running down the shank of the hook. Everybody asks me, how do you get your tails like that? Well, in several of my other videos, you can see that I'm always using thread dams when I tie these sort of things, when I tie my tails in and things like that. Now, I've stacked all these other V's up. There's 4 or 5 of them in there. Excuse me. And I'm going to measure with this. And I just want this portion of the tail where the tip was to stick out a little bit further. So now I'm going to grab it with my fingers right here, because that's where I'm going to cut it. So there you can see I've cut that off, and now I'll go ahead and tie this in, and you can see how nice and open that tail is. So it's not just flat down the shank of the hook. And I can come down here just a little bit more. So now we've got the blue tied in. So I've already pre-cut the chartreuse V's. These you can see. So I've got 3 of these because I want just a subtle little transition between the chartreuse and the blue. Because when this is done, the chartreuse basically, it'll add color, but it'll also create a target for the fish. So I've got them stacked, pinched together. So that's a little too long right there as I measure it, because I want it a little bit shorter than the blue. So I'll come up a little bit further, maybe even a little bit further. That looks pretty good right there. So I'm going to put that much of that down for the chartreuse, and I'll grab it right here and I'll cut this off. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this right in on top of that blue. And again, the thread dam is holding the blue out, so you can see that you'll see that it'll even make the chartreuse flare a little bit. And if you go too far, it'll start to flatten out. So then you can always back or wrap off. So then what I do is I just take this and I wrap it down real good. Try to get all of the green covered up. And I like to build a nice taper in with the thread. So you can see that this has a real nice taper right there. And when I go to add the UV glue to it, it'll just complete it. Now I'll just put a whip finish on it, about 4 or 5 turns, and cut that off. So some people will glue the head right there with head cement. I personally don't. I take some UV glue and a good little amount. That way they last longer, and I'll put it right on there. And when I get it on there, I just hold it and turn it. And as I rotate this vise, it'll even right out. So now I've got it all evened out. So I'll take it, hit it with the UV light, and that will harden it up a little bit. And then I have 2 other UV lights that I set these under, and I'll leave them under there for, I don't know, a half hour or so these cure really good. You can also set them out in the sun. Anywhere they get UV light, it'll cure that glue. But that's it right there. That's all there is to tying that little bluegrass pattern right there. And that is a deadly little bug right there. But that's how easy it is. It just takes a little bit of practice to get used to all the little nuances of it. But that will flat catch you a bunch of fish right there. And remember, when you're tying these, this jig is going to be presented to the fish like this. So, you know, you've got your line tied on like this, so underneath they see that chartreuse, and it just makes a great target for them. And as that comes through the water, as you can see, that'll be the profile of the bait right there. So many people look at these in a vise and they see them like that, but that's upside down. That's not actually how the fish sees it. So always jigs, and check the profiles of them as the fish would see them, and I think you'll find you'll make a more aesthetically correct jig. So hopefully this helps you. Please like and subscribe, and I'll be starting to get more of these jig tying tutorials out there. Thanks so much for watching.